When most people hear the word courage, they think of big moments, big risks, big decisions, big dramatic actions. But that's not where most courage lives. Most courage is quiet, it doesn't look impressive, it doesn't get attention, and most of the time, no one else even notices it. But it shows up every single day. I think back over the years in the classroom, in coaching, and even on long bike trips. The moments that required the most courage weren't the big dramatic ones, they were the small ones. Speaking up in a meeting when it would have been easier to stay quiet. Having a difficult conversation when you know it might not go well. Trying something new when there's a real chance you could fail. Getting up the next day when you're tired, sore, and not fully motivated. That's what courage looks like. And most people underestimate it because it doesn't feel powerful in the moment. It feels uncomfortable. There's a reason for that. From a psychological perspective, our brains are wired to avoid discomfort. Avoidance feels safer in the short term, but over time, avoidance increases anxiety. And facing discomfort, even in small ways, reduces it. So those small acts of courage, they're not just meaningful, they're measurable. They change how we respond to stress. They change how we perform, and this matters a lot in the workplace. Because most organizations don't struggle with lack of talent. They struggle with a lack of small, consistent courage. Courage in a workplace looks like sharing an idea when you're not 100% confident, asking a question instead of pretending you understand, giving honest feedback respectfully, or setting a boundary when your energy is low. And here's where it becomes even more important. Without those small acts of courage, problems don't get addressed. Ideas stay unspoken. Teams become quieter over time. Performance slowly declines. Not because people don't care, but because they're avoiding discomfort. At RTJ Wellness, we talk about courage differently. Not as something dramatic, but as something daily, something trainable. Because when people understand that courage is just taking one step into discomfort, it becomes more accessible. During our long-distance bike trips, courage wasn't some big moment. It was getting back on the bike the next morning, even when everything hurt, even when the weather wasn't great, even when part of you didn't feel like it. And the interesting thing is, those small decisions build over time. They shape confidence, they build resilience, they change identity. Most people are waiting to feel ready before they act. But courage doesn't work that way. You don't feel ready first, you act, and then confidence follows. If you're feeling stuck in any area right now, it might not be a lack of ability. It might not be a lack of knowledge. It might simply be a moment where courage is required. Not something big, just something honest. Because real change doesn't usually come from one massive decision. It comes from small, consistent acts of courage that most people overlook. Where in your life right now is a small act of courage required? And more importantly, what would it look like to take that step today? If this message resonated with you and you're interested in learning more about how to perform at your best while maintaining your well-being, consider subscribing and following along.